Okay, let's take a look at top lane. So we're going to go through both, like, what do you want to think about when you're in the lane phase? What do you want to think about in mid game and onwards? And sort of how to play around the pressure that we create in top lane. And I just want to set up some general keywords and notes for you to follow when you play, which I will repeat it later, but I really highly recommend that you do write down what I'm going to tell you now. And if you can, open sticky notes in Windows and write it on your secondary screen if you have a secondary screen. Or if you only have one screen, then either buy sticky notes in real life and place them around your monitor, or write it over in a notepad so that you can actually see and read the notes while you play. If you can see and read notes while you play, and you have like keywords of what you need to think about when you play, then you help yourself focus on the stuff that you need to focus on, and hence you're going to perform better while you play. We talked about earlier in this course about the pressure and the value of the map, where we identified that the bot side river is the most important value of the map, and that means that top lane is the furthest away from where the actual value on the map is, right? So it's really important as a top laner that we really think about and try to put emphasis on how we actually interfere with the part of the map that is important or higher value, right? So I want to show you two things, right? Before I start with any notes or anything like this. There's two ways that you can impact the map in the early game. It's either through having pressure in your own lane, this time we're blue side. It's either by having pressure that forces the enemy jungler to come topside, with good vision control, you should be safe. Like, you should have a pink ward in the river and a trinket ward in the tri-brush. So with good vision control and with pressure, most likely you're going to pull the enemy jungler topside. That means that the enemy jungler is not on the bottom side of the map, which is the higher value part of the map. So now you're actually making an impact in the game by pulling their jungler to topside. As long as you don't die right now and you're able to maintain pressure in your lane, then you're doing quite a lot for the game, because you allow your mid laner to play aggressive, and you allow your bot lane to play aggressive because they know where the enemy jungler is. Our jungler also sees where the enemy jungler is potentially then, and can then play around bot side, play for dragon, play for invades, counter jungle, gank, uncontested. So it opens up a lot of opportunities. If we look away from the junglers, then what you can do when you have pressure in your lane is you can actually roam towards mid lane. What happens is that the enemy top laner, he has Fog of War in this box. So as soon as you leave his vision range after pushing him to the turret, he's going to assume that you're going on a roam. So he's going to call MIAs on you. And that puts your pressure towards the mid lane. Whether you decide to go all the way and roam and try to gank the mid laner, or if you decide to just pick up a crab, or if you decide to just play some deeper vision in the river, that's up to you. You don't actually need to do anything. It's more than fine that you actually just walk to this brush, because you're putting both pressure on the top laner and the mid laner and the jungler, because every time the enemy top laner is stuck on his turret, he doesn't see where you're going, but he sees that you're leaving the lane. He's going to be thinking, the enemy top laner is pushing me to the turret, I can't move, I need to get his minions, and he's actually doing something on the map. So he's in an uncomfortable situation, he's going to get stressed out, he has to call MIAs every wave. You know, it puts a lot of pressure on the game, it puts a lot of pressure on the top laner, and if their mid laner is constantly seeing MIAs from the top lane, then he's probably going to play safer too. And if he doesn't play safer, well, then you're going to have opportunities to gank him. Also, as a jungler, it's really frustrating to see your top laner every single wave on the turret and he's calling MIAs, because you know that there's a top laner who might show up in your topside jungle, which sucks if you're a jungler, right? So those are the two primary ways of interfering. Then you obviously also have teleports and roams, but this is more from level 6 and onwards. I will show that when we get to it. So I'm gonna go over the notes right now. So first and foremost, I just want to go over the champ select notes. So I sort of generally spread this into 3 parts: champ select, early game, and then mid game and onwards, because mid game and late game sort of play out the same way and you sort of have the same sort of game plan in that area. But firstly, let's go over champ select. When you are in champ select and both rosters are locked in, the draft is finished and you go into loading, I want you to start thinking about 3 different things. Number 1, I want you to think about the jungle clear speed differential. What this means is, how does your jungler's clear speed compare to their jungler's clear speed? If you're not sure about this, then just assume they're the same. The reason why we think about this is because this can give you knowledge on when you can actually play aggressive in the lane level 3. If you know that your jungler starts bot side and he's getting a leash, and on 130 you see that the enemy bot lane is not in the lane, then you know that the enemy bot lane is giving a leash. So every single game, we look when the minion waves crash in bot lane to see whether the enemy bot lane is giving a leash or not. If the enemy bot lane is giving a leash, then you know where their jungler starts. If you know the speed differential on the junglers or they're equal, then you know that when your jungler has done his red buff and he's done his blue buff and his gromp, which is 3 camps, or red buff, wolves, blue buff, when he's on the 3rd camp, he's finished the 3rd camp, then you know that the enemy jungler could have also finished 3 camps. That's when you gotta start playing smart. Generally, in top lane, to play smarter on the enemy jungler, you want to try to get your ward out after the 2nd wave. So after the 2nd minion wave, you need to go and get your trinket ward out. Whether that's a trinket ward in the river or in the tri-brush. That's depending on how you're playing the lane. But if you know, for example, that the enemy jungler started top side and he's clearing towards bot side, then you don't need to ward on the 2nd wave because he's most likely not going to be there unless he's doing some sort of cheese. So it's about being able to use our vision properly, and it's about avoiding ganks, and it's about playing smart with the knowledge that we have on the game. Second note, I want you to think about the push and power difference in top lane. Level 1, 2, 3, 6. It's 2, 3, 6 because this is when you get new abilities, and that's what matters the most in the lane. And what you want to think about is, can you get levels first? If you can get level first, then you can do a level trade when you're level 2 and he's level 1, or you're level 3 and he's level 2, or you're level 6 and he's level 5. And it can also tell you when you can fight. If you're straight up stronger than the enemy laner on the same levels, then this is also useful information because that means that you can trade him more aggressively in the lane. So I want you to already start visualizing the matchup that you're walking into before you actually walk into it, so that you can pre-think and pre-plan how you're going to play out the lane. The third note is considering whether or not you want to do an early teleport back to your lane after the 4th wave to increase pressure. This can be very useful if you're in a difficult matchup or a poke matchup where you're going to be poked out early and you need to sort of get away back into the game. The reason why we do it on the 4th wave is after 4 waves you will have enough gold to either buy a new Doran's or a corruption potion and potentially pinks and pots depending on how good you've lasted it. This is a very useful teleport, and you can even use it in good matchups just to further increase your pressure, but it's what I call a pressure teleport, and I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, that's champ select. Let's move over to early game. Once you're actually within the game, this is what you should be thinking about. Try to get level 2 first if you can. Level 2 first in top lane is on the 2nd wave first melee minion. When the first melee minion of the 2nd wave dies is when you will get level 2. So try to kill that minion before he kills your first melee minion on the 2nd wave so that you get level 2 first. Hence, you can do a trade with him when you're level 2 and he's level 1. This is a very big power spike in the game. Secondly, because of how the map is and the value of the map is on the bottom side, you always want to push and you always want to pressure whenever you can. So I like to call it the push and pressure mentality. Try as much as you can to track the enemy jungler and try to see where your jungler is and try to anticipate where the enemy jungler is so that you can be smarter with your vision and smarter with your pressure. Because you don't want to over pressure and over aggress when the enemy jungler is within your lane, right? Something that is also very important when you're in the top lane, okay? You don't want to contest your lane if you're at a disadvantage. This means if the enemy top laner has a lot more health than you because you've had some bad trades, if the enemy top laner has higher levels than you, if the enemy top laner has more minions than you, or he has better items than you, then I don't want you to fight in the middle of the lane, or even within the lane phase. Then I want you to just let him push you to the tower and farm safely so that you can actually bounce back in health and bounce back in levels before you fight him. If you've fallen really far behind in your lane, maybe you never fight him. So don't go and contest a wave that is pushing to you already. Just let the enemy top laner push you out. If he starts freezing, then either get help, and if you can't get help, then just forget the lane and try to make something happen on the other side of the map. Just as in any other role, and something that you're gonna see that I put a lot of emphasis on, buy pink wards. I don't care if you buy 2 pink wards or 3 pink wards every time you base. It's really, really good. It gives you a lot of pressure. What you can do in the top lane, for example, to get pressure through your pink wards is, imagine you got to push in the top lane, right? So maybe when the enemy top laner is pressured, he tries to get a vision in this brush and he tries to get vision in the tri-brush. If you had 3 pink wards, well, clear his ward here. When you push them into turret, go and clear his ward in the tri-brush. Then move your pink ward to the river where you want it to be, leave a trinket in the tri-brush. Now you know that he has no vision in the lane brush, he has no vision in the tri-brush, and you have vision in the river. This puts a lot of pressure on the enemy top laner, and he's stuck in the fog of war box again on his turret. The less vision the laner has, the more pressure he's going to feel, and the more likely he is to beg for help from his jungler or his mid laner, and the more safe he's probably going to play, which allows you to actually make impact on the game. Try to always be time efficient. Don't stay around in a lane where you can't do anything. If you push the lane, don't stand and wait for the next minion wave. Either take a base or try to roam. Also, after level 6, you always want to see if you can do a roam to bot lane or teleport to bot lane if there's good opportunities, or potentially even to mid lane if there's good opportunities. Just always look at the map and see if you can make something happen with your teleports or with your roams. If you roam to bot lane by running there from base, make sure that you have teleport up so you can teleport back to top lane if you need to. That covers the champ select and the early game part of the top lane. In part 2, we're going to look over the mid game and onwards and sort of talk about the more mid game oriented pressure that you do in the top lane. Again, I highly recommend that you write these notes down either on a secondary screen through sticky notes, or in real life on sticky notes and put them on your monitor, or in a notepad. Try to make sure that you have the notes visible to you when you play, so that you can focus on the right things at the right time and increase your focus where you want it to be. And then things are going to start doing good for you. And remember, the highest value portion of the map is the bot side river. If you're in the top lane, you're the furthest away from it. So you really want to play in a way where you play around the pressure and you try to increase the pressure towards the side of the map where it matters the most. Okay, that covers top lane, champ select, and early game.